My mama empowered me when I was doing Hanging with Mr. Cooper. Listen to this. I'm doing Hanging with Mr. Cooper. Always been a big dude, bigger than an average bear. But I respect my elders. There was a kid that was on the show by the name of, he'll enjoy the shout out, Chris Carter. He's in his 20s. I'm still a teenager, right? He hits on my mom. My mom tells me the story. She goes, yeah, that little tried to hit on me earlier. And I was thinking to myself, right when she said that, I went, that's up. And then the next sentence changed my manhood. She said, and I almost made you beat his ass. My chest poked up so big, I didn't even think in my mind I could this until she said that. Women, moms are strong as They're very empowering to their sons if they use their the right way. I'm like, you gonna walk me out to the car? I'm like, it's scary as out there. She's like, no, but I got you with me. Oh, I didn't know I was that guy till you said that. And I wish I would. I'll go out by myself and be like, oh, I gotta be careful. But if I got my kids or my wife, shit, I wish I would.
Amen.
And that's what a mother should do. That's how a mother should be for her kids. So I hate when a motherfucker say a black woman can't raise a man. What are you talking about? That's the one that can empower a man. She empowered me when I was young, and maybe I'll fight any on the planet if they with them.
Come on.
If they ain't with them, I might go, man, this nigga kind of big. You got it, player. You got it. You got it. But you with my mama or my kids or my wife, I will murder this. I'll find a way. I might not fight you fair, but I bet I'll you up. Go ahead.
All right, people. So you guys see what's going on here. That is Omar Gooding, for those who don't know. He was a really big TV star back in the day. Well, a big kids TV star. Around 1990 to 1992, he was starring in a TV show on Nickelodeon called Wet, Wild and Crazy Kids. And then from like 92 to, 96, I want to say, he was on Hanging with Mr. Cooper. And I think in between that, he also was working on a show called The Smart Guy. Now, for a little bit of backstory, he is the brother of Cuba Gooding Jr. Now, Cuba Gooding Jr. was a humongous star in the early 90s. He was in Boys in the Hood. He was in A Few Good Men. He most famously did Jerry Maguire, huge actor. And their father was Cuba Gooding, and he was the lead singer of a group called The Main Ingredient, and they sang a song called Everybody Plays the Fool. Humongous hit back in, I want to say, the 80s or like late 70s, something like that. So it's sufficient to say this guy had clout. He was clouted up. He had a lineage of fame in his family. His dad was famous. His brother was super famous, and he was famous. Back in the 90s, you saw a lot of famous families acting. You had the Wayans, you had the Goodings, you had the Douglases, Michael Douglas, Kirk Douglas, Charlie Sheen I want to say he is related to either the Douglases or Emilio Estevez, something like that. There were a lot of famous families back then. The point of this is there was no reason for this person's mother to bring this fight to him. As he tells the story, his mother was on the set of Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and an older kid that they were working with, an older man that they were working with, made a pass at his mom. And I guess it wasn't too gracious, and she took exception to it, and she brought that information to him and says, I was going to have you jump on this kid, but I thought otherwise. And in that moment, he all of a sudden he discovered a side of himself that he never knew was there. All of a sudden, he becomes the hero. This is what I'm talking about when I tell you guys that women will gas you up. Even your own mom, they will gas you up to go crash out. I want you to think about everything I just said. This man, at the time he would have been a teenager, this individual was not in a position to be fighting, but at the same time, he didn't need to fight. This woman, her husband was ultra famous. He had a smash single at one point, and her oldest son, Cuba Gooding Jr., was a big time actor at that point. At this point, he would have done the movies Boys in the Hood and A Few Good Men. So he would have been established. And then her youngest son, the one who was on set, had already been on a Nickelodeon TV series, and now they're doing Hanging with Mr. Cooper. So her sons would have been clouded up. She would have been a somebody. She would have been the biggest thing on that set. Her kids would have been the biggest thing on that set outside of the main actor, Mark Curry at the time. So there was no reason for her to go to her son with this incident and say, "Hey, I was going to have you beat him up." You could have went to the producers. They would have known who you were. You had the clout to have this solved behind the scenes and quietly. You did not need to gas your son up to go potentially crash out. But that's what she was going to do. Why? Because of her emotions. And this is why I always tell you, do not be quick to crash out over a woman, even your own mom, because her emotions will get you killed. This woman had no forethought. She had no foresight into whether or not he was going to ever be able to work again after that incident. What happens when he goes over there and he beats this guy up? And keep in mind, he said the guy was a grown man. So beating him up is a maybe. Maybe he goes over there, beats this guy up, and then he never works again. He gets fired from the show. Keep in mind, he wasn't the main character. What if he goes over there, gets beat down, and then never works again? What happens when they say, "Oh, okay, this kid's a problem," and then he causes a lot of commotion for his older brother who was doing very well for himself in the 90s? What happens then? You ruin the family name. What I'm saying is, she mentioned this because she wanted to plant a seed. She wanted him to look at this other individual with animosity from that moment on. She wanted something to happen. She just didn't want to be directly responsible for it. This is what I'm talking about. This woman essentially weaponized her son. As far as I'm concerned, there's no difference between her walking up to her son and saying, "Hey, this dude offended me, beat him up," and her doing exactly what she did, which is saying, "Hey, this guy offended me and I was going to have you beat him up, but I thought otherwise." And then at a later point in time, those two get into it because there's that animosity. Now, the guy who's on the set who allegedly hit on his mom, he has static and tension with this person that he's working with his coworker, and he potentially doesn't even know why. And keep in mind, we don't know the full story. We don't know. Maybe she was flirting with him. Maybe she saw these younger men and she decided to make a pass and the guy didn't receive it well, or maybe, he was a little bit too straightforward. Maybe he wasn't trying to take her out. Maybe he said, "Hey, let's, hit my trailer in 15 minutes. And she was like, "Well, I'm not that kind of girl." And, maybe anything. This incident happens and she gassed her son up to potentially ruin his career, to potentially ruin his brother's career when she didn't have to take it that way. Oftentimes, women will see their kids as weapons. They see them as an extension of themselves. They see them as a tool to get a job done. And this is why I always want to remind you guys, women aren't bad people, but you have to understand how they operate. They get in their emotions and reason goes out the window. Now, thankfully, this guy did not do that, but I just want you guys to just focus on what he said. He basically said her words planted something within him. It awoken something in him. Do you think women don't know that the things that they say have that effect on you? Like, not even just your mom, your sister, your girlfriend, the women in your friend group, the women who you call friend, like you're in some girl's friend zone. Do you think they don't know what they're doing when they act a certain way around you? They are building an emotional bond with you so that if they ever need you to go kamikaze, you'll do it without a moment's hesitation. Just like this woman. Her son said at first when he heard the news, he was like, "Dang, that's messed up." And then when she mentioned violence, he was ready to go instantaneously, no second thoughts. That's how fast it happens. It's because the women around you program you through subtle manipulations, subtle emotional things, subtle emotional cues and events. They portray themselves as weak, as in need. They portray themselves as victims. They portray themselves in a way that elicits a response within you as a man to go crash out. Now, keep in mind, this is not just men. right? This is not just men. And this is why I tell you guys, don't protect them, because I got plenty of stories of women weaponizing their daughters to do the same thing. And I'm going to show you those here in my next few episodes. But I just wanted to put this one out here to kind of just show you guys, even a woman who's at the top is not above crashing out. Keep in mind, at this point in time, this would have been the mid 90s. She had a husband and 2 sons who were crushing it in Hollywood and in the music industry. And there's no reason for her to have that mindset, but she was willing to sacrifice her son's career to assuage her emotions. So I just want you guys to look at this from the standpoint of being careful what you hear from a woman. Don't let it spin you up. Whenever you hear a woman say something, she's a victim, somebody offended her, always understand that there's a possibility that she's just flat out lying. Always understand that there's the possibility that she's just in her emotions, and understand that regardless of what actually happened, there's no need for you to crash out if the situation can be handled by other means. And even if it can't be handled by other means, you only need to crash out if it's an absolute emergency and somebody's crashing out in your direction. Don't let women gas you up to throw away your life, to throw away your career, or to put yourself in a horrible situation that they don't have to dig you out, and they get to have a sense of plausible deniability. Because remember what the woman said. She was going to tell him to do violence, but she thought otherwise. That's plausible deniability. She was going to let him crash out and then say, well, I didn't tell you to do it. She was fully hoping that he did. So I'm not going to beat this into the dirt. Let me know what you guys think, and I will get back at you on the next one. Peace.